Welcome to the show. My name's Kevin Stoller, the host of the podcast and also CEO of K12.com. And this Better Learning podcast is all about connecting other aspects of education, from K-12 public private charter to higher ed, and then into the corporate learning areas and what's going on in the corporate world. And today I have a guest with me that's really talking about how the corporate and nonprofit world is really affecting some big changes in education. So Audrey Reese, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm very glad to be on with you today. Appreciate the invitation.
Well, glad to have you here because there are some really neat things that you guys are doing. And I'll try to explain all your roles, but you have a lot going on. You have like 3 different jobs kind of right now. So.
I do. As you mentioned, the corporate and the nonprofit world, I have a role that straddles both of those. I am a vice president of asset management in the corporate side, working on different types of real estate investments. And I'm also the executive director of 2 nonprofits that really focus on the intersection of affordable housing and education. One of those nonprofits, called 3 Star Communities, was created to own affordable housing, not workforce housing, units that are rented out to be accessible for a variety of people at different types of income, very low income all the way up to mixed income. And I'm also the executive director of a nonprofit called Star C, which provides wraparound services to the affordable housing communities. So with that, having that foundation of affordable housing, that prevents people from moving out because they can't afford the rent. So once they're stabilized in those communities, we offer things like wellness initiatives to help them navigate the health system and figure out where they can fit in to access health care. We offer urban gardening, which helps to create a sense of community and gets people out and socializing with their neighbors where they live. And also, we offer a free after-school program on site where we bring in the children who live at those communities that are near to schools that really need focused assistance, and we help those children with their homework. So in those ways, we really help to strengthen the families by giving them affordable housing and do things to help make a strong community with positive educational outcomes for the children who live there.
Good. I have a lot of questions about that. First, geographically,
Great.
Is there a certain part of the country that you guys are focused to?
Yes, right now we are based in Atlanta, Georgia, and that's where all of our properties are. They're all in the metro Atlanta area, which covers a very large area and a number of people. There are over 6 million people who live in the greater Atlanta area, and we get a lot of in-migration every year. And with so many people coming in, there's such a demand for housing here. And Atlanta has unfortunately become known as having a lack of affordable housing. So that's why this issue is very, very important for us.
So give me a little bit of history on that. How did this idea come about, and what was kind of the driving force to start doing something like this?
Well, as I mentioned, one of the roles that I have is working in real estate for a corporate organization. It was founded by Margie Stagmeyer with her partner, Duncan Gibbs. The name of this organization is TriStar. And in their capacity as real estate investors, they had owned and overseen some affordable communities here in Atlanta that were really, really challenging. And they were having difficulty in working with some of the local governments here to get the permits needed that were necessary to do the work, the physical work of improving the properties, which involved rehabbing burned out units, making necessary improvements, bringing them up to code. And in the course of all those conversations, they realized that they weren't getting favorable treatment because they were being faulted with the performance of a school that was next to that property. It was a school in Marietta, Georgia, which is a smaller town that's a part of the greater Atlanta area. And the school was known as Brumby Elementary. That school was having some serious trouble with its performance, and it was because of what was going on at their property. And the main issue with that is something called transiency. Have you ever heard of transiency? Do you know what that is?
From what, basically just a lot of people moving in and out? Is that the way?
Yeah, that's basically it. People moving in and out and of a community. It could be because the community is not stable, it's not desirable, or it could be because their rent is going up and they can't afford to live there. So in the course of realizing that transiency was a really big issue at the school that was next to this apartment community, and that the community itself was causing transiency, it wasn't well run, it was not well maintained, and so there was a constant turnover of residents. That was identified as the major issue. If they could cut down on transiency, give people stable housing, then the children would not have to move and switch schools so often. And when a child has to move from one school to the next, even once during the school year, it really has a negative impact on their ability to perform academically and their ability to learn. It's also very disruptive to the classroom as well. And our community was causing significant transiency at the local school. So that's where we decided to come in and make a change. We decided to improve and stabilize our community, give people a community that they wanted to live in, and a community where the rents were affordable so that they wouldn't have to keep moving over and over again seeking an affordable level of housing, and help their children to remain in the school. And with that stabilization in place, we then started offering after-school programs to help, and other services on site. So it was really as a result of some things that were experienced with the community in Marietta. It kind of brought that light bulb moment of realizing that we can help to improve the performance of local schools by what we do with the real estate property. And from there, Star C was born, and it's continued to evolve from there.
That is so great to hear, because it is one of the things that we hear in the schools a lot, is that these children just want some space to kind of call their own and have that stability of it. And you're right. I mean, a lot of that is if they're switching schools a lot, it's just, there's never that kind of grounded feeling of this is my space and this is kind of where I belong. So, and I know we see it a lot inside the school, so it's really interesting to see kind of your perspective of seeing it from the greater community.
Yes, it's so important for the children just to have stability, to know that they won't be disrupted in terms of where they live, and even the social disruption, and then disruption in the learning environment. If we can bring those things down to a very low level, then it can help them to thrive. Then that gives children so much less to worry about, that they can really focus in on their education and do better.
Let me go more to the personal side. You kind of growing up in your childhood and experience with education, were there things that you went through or experienced that kind of influenced you wanting to get involved in this type of work?
Yes, so I grew up in North Carolina. Like most people here in Atlanta, I moved from somewhere else, but I've been living in Atlanta for a number of years now, and I would say my interest in education, it started at a very early age. I did participate in a Head Start program when I was very young, and that's a program designed to help introduce children to academic settings early, to bring an academic element to the daycare side of things, so that while they're enjoying play, and while play is very important to their learning, they also get introduced to academic concepts very early on. So being in that environment, getting a little bit of structure, even at a very early age, those are some of my earliest memories. And just that helped to reinforce the idea of the importance of education. So things just continued to go on for me from there, just different points of my life where I was able to see how important education was. When I was in about the third grade, my mother became a registered nurse. So she got her degree in nursing and went on to become a registered nurse, a career that she still enjoys to this day. And that just helped me to see how education can change someone's life so dramatically. Other key points of education is, I would say in high school, when I was able to earn an academic scholarship to college, that was very key to me, because it helped me to see that your efforts can pay off, that you can set a goal, achieve it, that you can be recognized for academic excellence, and then that you can get assistance in going to college. And it's not just about if you can play sports, even though that's important and I do support that, but from an academic level, you can achieve and be rewarded from that as well. So those were some of the key things in my primary education that I think were very, very important in helping me to realize how necessary education is. And I fall back to to those thoughts even now, because I feel like so much of our conversation about education these days has become about just job training. And I think that it's so much more than that in terms of people being able to have a better quality of life and being able to live out their greater potential.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is easy, to talk just about that. And we've talked a lot about this show as well of how everything just seems to be college prep, which is really just kind of work prep and preparing for the workplace, and how there's so much more aspects to it that, we just get caught up on those where we're kind of missing the boat in a lot of the different areas.
I agree. It's so much more just enjoying life than just, can you do the absolute basics? Of course, that's necessary, but even to have a broader perspective, to be able to relate and understand other people, education is a part of that. And I'm glad to see people like you involved in this space to create environments that are flexible enough to accommodate different learning styles, different needs, and different circumstances, but all to promote greater learning and growth of an individual.
Appreciate that. So kind of from this point, kind of looking ahead now, like where do you see kind of your path as well as kind of the work you're doing kind of going forward?
Going forward is very, very exciting, almost scary in a way. Affordable housing has really reached the top of everyone's mind in terms of the hot topics and the key issues that are going on here in the greater Atlanta area and really across the nation. Atlanta has become known for having a great divide between people who have and those who have not. And we're going through a mayoral election right now. Everyone who lives in the city of Atlanta will be voting in November. And of course, that impacts the greater region as well. And one of the biggest issues that everyone wants to discuss is affordable housing, because it's getting to the point that it's not really feasible for even your average working person to buy a decent home in Atlanta. You have to move further and further and further out into the suburbs, which of course compromises one's ability to access higher paying jobs, public transportation, and different things like that. So we feel that we're right in line with that. Atlanta has had a lot of educational challenges. Everything that's going on here is really reflective of what's going on in the nation. It's just so sharp and hot topic nature right here, right now. Education and affordable housing, budgets for education are being cut, and that does not seem to be changing anytime soon. So if we see ourselves right there in that nexus of where affordable housing and education meet, how they can be interwoven to improve each other. And we think that by bringing together people in both of those spaces in partnership, who can invest in both of those spaces, invest in the children as far as education, invest in the children as far as where they live, that we can impact both of those issues and really turn things around. So we've gotten a lot of political will in this area. A lot of people are interested in what we're doing, wanting to talk with us about it and wanting to partner with us. So we're really looking forward to making a lot of strides in this area. We have several apartment deals that we're looking at right now, and we're hoping to bring those to a close, hopefully in the next several months.
So what can we do, either individually or anyone who's listening to this, do to kind of help your cause, whether it's directly with you or with the same mission?
Well, there are a lot of things that people can do, and I'm very glad you asked that question. Anyone who is interested in investing in this type of thing, you may have heard of social impact investing, which is where people put dollars towards missions or programs that are very important to them. So for people who are interested in the issues of education or the issue of affordable housing, we have a means for them to invest with us and to impact both of those issues. So they can reach out to me or visit one of our websites, 3starcommunities.org or star-c.org, to hear more about those opportunities. We also have a monthly breakfast that we host here in the Atlanta area, where we really dive in and tell people more about our model, and they can visit our websites to hear more about those and to sign up and attend. And also for people who live here, if they want to volunteer, they can volunteer with our after school program. They can come there after going through some screening, of course, and work with the children. They can contribute items like books, wellness things relating to our wellness initiative on site. So we think that we have different ways for people to plug in either as an investor or as a volunteer, and also as an advocate. People who advocate for affordable housing, people who understand the importance of it, people who realize that it's for working families, that is for the betterment of our communities. If they can speak up for that and champion these causes when they get a chance to do so, all of those things would really help us. But again, key things to invest with us or to volunteer with our Star Seed program and support those children like that.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. We'll make sure that we put those things in the show notes as well, so people can click on them and go to that. Are there other cities that you guys have looked at, or others that you know of outside of the Atlanta area that's trying to do things like this?
We have heard of some models that are going on in other cities. One in particular in Austin that we've heard about that does something similar in terms of affordable housing with the wraparound services that they offer or associated programs that they offer. Some of the program mix may be a bit different than ours, but we've heard that there are some other programs that are out there, and we've taken some time to begin to investigate those, to talk to people in other cities as well as people in the greater Atlanta area who may have a relevant element to what we're doing, so we can pick up those best practices and learn from what they're doing, and not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but just to kind of take the best of where we are right now and move forward from there.
Okay. Well, good. That's good to hear. And hopefully there's others that are listening that have either know of something like this or have been wanting to do something like this, that have some resources to start with.
Right. And as I had mentioned before, the social impact investing, we found that that's more prevalent on the West Coast or either in the Northeast. So it's coming to Atlanta, and we're helping to educate people about that. But we're seeking to learn from what other models are doing as well. We've heard of some people in California who are very strong in social impact investing, particularly around charter schools. With the Turner Impact Fund is a fund that we've looked at and investigated. Different models like that, just to see what they're doing that we can learn from and replicate to a degree here.
That's good. And I always hear too about the growing movement of the social enterprises. Basically for profit companies, but they're for a greater good.
And, very mission based. Yeah, that's very interesting as well. I've seen those a lot where people really want to combine their own entrepreneurship with mission-based work as well. And there can be ways for people to monetize the work that they do, as well as for their work that they charge a fee for, whether it's a product or a service that is for the greater good, so they can get those monetary rewards as well as benefiting the community around them. So I'm really glad to see the growth in that space. And it also can keep people doing good work. Some people feel like they have to do one or the other. Either they do community work and almost take a vow of poverty for a number of years, or either they're just all about the corporate side. But seeing that blend of the corporate side with community work is very exciting. And I think that it really helps to bring the best of people to whatever work that they're trying to do.
So is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should be asking about?
Well, let's see. How can we work together? How can we partner with you? I think that would be a great question.
Sure. Yeah. From our perspective, obviously that, like, we love seeing what you're doing, and and we're working with schools all over the place, trying to help them create better learning environments. So we do work with a lot of different manufacturers, and we always try to connect, because obviously, like you mentioned, educational budgets are always limited, and trying to find those resources to to provide the right, whether it's furniture or other items for the school to create that. So we're always trying to help and trying to connect people. We do what we can on there, but yeah, it's whatever, if there are areas where you need some assistance in that, we can try to connect with the right people, or be able to look at those spaces and see if there's some different ways we can do things. We'd be more than happy to help out there.
Okay, great. Now, I would like to ask you, you had mentioned previously that you were in the Arizona area. That's where your company is based?
Yeah, actually, we're based in Ohio, but I actually personally just moved out to Arizona. Yeah, to Arizona to open an office out here as well.
Oh, great. Well, I want to know, in terms of Arizona and Ohio, what are you seeing as far as affordable housing? And are you seeing anyone trying to use affordable housing to benefit the communities out there, to stabilize communities for the benefit of education, or what type of trends are you noticing?
Yeah, looking at the two between, and I moved from Columbus, Ohio to Phoenix area. In the affordable, I feel like everywhere housing is just through the roof right now, and it's just amazing to see. Like at some point, you feel like there's got to be some correction on that.
Right.
But I don't know when it's going to happen or where it's going to happen. Yeah, I mean, it's
you might drive around all the time and say, "What do these people do?"
Exactly.
How can they afford that?
Exactly. And I would say maybe that's a little sharper actually in the Phoenix area. It does seem like
really?
It is more expensive than where I was coming from in Ohio, where I thought Ohio was getting to a point where, where I'm like, wow, it just keeps going up. Arizona really got hit by the real estate crash in like 2008. Because most of the ones are, even though it's been a big boom, they're still not quite to the level they were in like 2007. So that's been interesting to see, because we didn't feel it as much in Columbus area. I mean, we felt it, but not as drastic as it seems it was here. I would say on the education side, though, the piece that in Arizona is, it will be very commonly talked about that public funding, they're 48th in the country as far as public funding towards schools. But the results have actually been right in the middle of the pack. I think they're like 23rd or 24th in results. And the biggest difference I've seen is that they have a very robust charter system here. And it's been around long enough for an outsider coming in and looking at it. It's kind of eye-opening to see, because we're seeing that public schools actually changing their ways to compete against the charter schools. And it's been an interesting dynamic. There's definitely pros and cons to both sides of that. But it has been very interesting to kind of see the whole. I feel like this may be one of the earlier states to see the charter school expansion kind of play out in the long run. Because in Ohio, it's pretty commonly known that the charter schools have had a rough time in Ohio. And I'm not sure where that will go. And then obviously other states that we deal with, we've seen some successes and we've seen some failures. And I think that's just part of that system. But it has been an interesting dynamic. Probably on the pros, it has definitely increased competition and increased kind of offerings to students. On the negative side, I do feel like Arizona has less community because there's not that community school that everyone kind of rallies around. And that's been interesting. I didn't really fully understand that until we've been here and seen that. But good question.
Yeah. Here, with the work that we're doing here, we intentionally pick blighted communities that are near low performing schools. And so we work to improve those communities, their physical appearance, their livability, We offer services to make it better to live there. And then we also work with that school. So when you mention the disruption of a neighborhood school because so many systems are moving towards charter, we're trying to keep that synchronicity intact here by picking schools that are picking schools and apartments that are right next to each other that can work together. The children who live in our apartment communities go to the school that's closest to them, and we try to improve those public schools. So we think that with everyone being focused on the needs of children, we hope that will overall be a plus. But we're working with the public schools that are right there to try to improve and turn those schools around so they will become desirable, so that people in the neighborhoods, even if they don't live in our apartment communities that are right there, that they will want to go to that local school, that school will become a school of choice. And we had, referencing back to our community that we had in Marietta, while we were on site with our community there and working with that school, we were able to help improve the performance of that school so that it became a Title I school of distinction. So that was a very positive result that we got there. And we're hoping to expand here in Atlanta by buying additional communities and then applying our services there. But we're also looking at setting up a model where apartment communities that we do not own can use our services as well. The 3 different initiatives that we have. So we're hoping to put them in place by buying new communities here, put these services in place at communities we don't own, and then maybe even taking this model national as well. So that's a long-term goal, but we have a big vision here, and we believe that we're at the very beginning of what's possible for us.
That's really cool to hear. Well, good. Well, Audrey, I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show here. Just a reminder to any listeners, if you haven't already subscribed, please click subscribe. And also, if you can scroll down, I know Apple has changed their podcast app, or if you listen other ways, to make sure if you can review us, it helps us to be found and get the word out about the podcast. And lastly, if you know of anyone, or if you think you have a good education story that you think would be good for other people to hear, reach out to me, and we'd be interested in having you on the show. So, Audrey, thanks for your time.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
One last thing before I go, I wanted to mention that Shoop Media is the company that does our podcast. They do all the editing and show notes and getting everything uploaded and all the images. So we appreciate their help. And if you are interested in doing a podcast, and you're not sure where to start, you have a good idea or something that you've always wanted to do, I'd reach out to them. They do a great job of basically taking it all off your plate and taking all the time that it would normally take to do a podcast out of your hands, and they do it all for you. So you basically just have to do the recordings, and they'll take it from there. So if you do want to reach out to Shoop Media, there will be a link on there as well.